What do you think about this expert mechanism this year?
Well, it's certainly a new process overall, as a new process as a mechanism in the United Nations. And this is a very first of the second term of the mechanism. And I think there's some very, very good work that was done by the first group of experts. Now we're taking that forward, and we're looking at the work that they've done before and then trying to add on new information as it comes along. But I think it's very, very encouraging, especially if the Human Rights Council takes the reports seriously. If the Human Rights Council takes the reports and recommendations seriously and they're implemented throughout the states, then the benefit actually reaches the local community, and I think that'll be a very, very, very big development.
You think that things are really changing for you Indigenous peoples?
Well, not yet. I'm sad to say that in some cases they're worsening. The statistics tell us in some areas, for example, even in developed countries like mine, some situations have worsened. For example, child poverty has not gotten better, unfortunately. Although there are some things that have gotten better, there's still areas where there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But that's not to overshadow the good, positive things that are being done as well. But so it's a balance of, yes, in some areas there's no change or it's gotten worse, and then in some other areas it's gotten better.
Can you tell us about your personal experience in all these years with this work at the United Nations?
Well, it's very, when I reflect back to 1977 when I first started here, when we didn't have a voice at the United Nations at all, and I reflect back to that time when we were here and didn't have a voice, we couldn't take the floor, we couldn't participate, to where we are now where there's three mechanisms. There's a permanent forum which has an office and annual meeting in New York where there's anywhere up to 2,400 delegations come to the meeting. There's the special rapporteur, that's a new mechanism that looks at violations on the rights of Indigenous peoples, and this new mechanism as well. So there's been substantial progress from that perspective. So you see more and more participation by Indigenous peoples throughout the UN system. But I still urge the recall the need to implement the recommendations that are coming forward. The suggestions for solutions that are coming forward from Indigenous peoples need to be taken seriously and used. For example, the declaration itself, the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, I was involved with that all the way through from day one to see it at the General Assembly adoption, and then finally the recent endorsements by Canada, United States, New Zealand, and Australia, who initially couldn't support it, but now have changed their position. It's really a significant progress. Now, the next step is, now that we have this framework for having good relations, let's implement it together. Let's have the Human Rights Council say to the states, we need to implement this together in a good way so that the impact will be at the local level. That's where the benefit needs to happen. It's good for us to be here and have these interventions and statements made and then dialogue with states, but it needs to happen at home. And that's where the challenge in the future still is, yeah.
And last question. Indigenous people are very different, and different culture, different languages, but they have strong links. Do you think is a spiritual link?
Well, it's a very important, and thank you for asking that, because over the years that I've been here, I've noticed, yes, we have different languages, we have different cultures, we have different expressions of traditional knowledge and so on, but there's some commonalities, there's some common challenges, there's some common beliefs, and one of the common bonds is the spiritual bond that we have among our people. We have a spiritual connection with each other, I think, for example, in relation to our land and in relation to Creator and so on. So there's a very strong spiritual bond that really goes across the Indigenous nations, and that holds us together. And I think that's really what has been the source of our strength over all these years, not to give up, not to be frustrated to say, well, nothing's going to happen, but to keep working, to keep believing that there's going to be a change, better days coming, and the spiritual beliefs of our people, the sacred ceremonies of our people, and other beliefs that Indigenous peoples hold are really a strong common bond that links us together.
Thank you very much. Thank you.